This video is all about steering control, how to get good control of your car with the steering wheel. I have a video in the top right hand corner of your screen about how to keep a good position, how to guide the car through narrow gaps, for example, but this video is going to focus on your control over the wheel. Just before I get started, I want to mention Collingwood Insurance. They're great if you're looking to insure yourself on a friend or family member's car and have a great offer on at the moment, but more on that one later. The first thing you want to do is make sure you have a good position for your steering wheel. You should be able to touch 12 o'clock, which is the top of your wheel, with your wrist. Not your fingertips, but your actual wrist. If you can make that connection there with a slight bend in your elbow, then you've got a good distance. You don't want to be so close that your arm's like this, right over the airbag, over the horn like that, you're too cramped up, and you don't want to be sort of stretching like this for the wheel. Try and move the steering wheel to suit you. Most go in and out and up and down now. If you've got that function, great, use it. If not, you're going to have to compromise with the seat to make sure you've still got good control over the clutch, the gas and the brake, and the steering. So for me, I reckon a little bit in like that. And then height wise, I want to be able to see the tops and the bottom of the dials through the center of the steering wheel, about there. Then I can pull it up here to secure it. Most cars these days have some kind of system like that. It's also important to be able to have your hands around 2:45 if it was a clock. So this is a 9, this is a 3, with the top part of your arm relatively close to your body. You don't want to be having your arms up here and stretching, because you're going to get fatigued and you're not going to have as good control. But if your upper part of your arm is near your body, you can drive for long distances for longer periods of time in comfort. It's a gripe that old Italian cars put the steering wheel too far away. So if you want to get comfortable with the steering wheel, you have to get yourself stupidly close to the pedals to be able to reach the steering wheel nicely. And if you had a good distance from the pedals, you would be stretching for the steering wheel, which isn't very comfortable. I think Italians had longer arms in the 60s, but don't anymore, because these days Italian cars put the steering wheel in a sensible place. So where should you hold the wheel? It's recommended that you hold the wheel about 2:45, so it'll be at 3 and 9, because that gives you the most control over the car possible. That's how I would hold the wheel if I was driving around a race circuit, say. But also you have your fingers near the windscreen wipers and the indicators, which is very handy because you don't want to take your hand off to use those. You can have your hands at 10 and 2, like this, but I find because your arm's a bit higher, you're less stable, particularly new drivers, so they tend to steer too much. I actually prefer to have it a little bit lower for road driving. Low enough, or not so low that you can't reach your indicators, but just a little bit lower, so your upper arm is nearer your body, so you're more stable, and that should help you do smaller, finer turns of the wheel to do those gradual bends without overdoing it. If you look at old Rolls Royces, these thumb indentations on the steering wheel are actually at 4 and 8, because they know that's the most comfortable place to place your hands when you're driving, particularly on long journeys, and Rolls Royces are all about comfort. For the UK driving test, they're not as interested about how you hold the wheel or where you hold the wheel, as long as you are holding the wheel. You can have your hands up here, here, like this. As long as you haven't got like your hands on your lap with your thumbs doing this, or you're not holding it at all, or you're just doing that with your finger, they're going to be fine as long as you have good control over the wheel. For these small bends, it's better to keep your hands on the wheel, like this. There's a bend coming here. I'm not going to let go of the wheel. I'm just going to move the steering wheel with my hand staying on the wheel, and that gives me better control, better accuracy. Most learners actually do this. What some learners do though is they tend to shuffle the wheel a lot, which leads them to steering too much. So they'll constantly be doing this, and that will mean they don't steer as smoothly. They'll steer too much or too little or too suddenly. But for these gradual bends, keep your hands in the same place on the wheel in a comfortable position, and you should be able to do all these bends easily. Won't be very good at junctions though, but it'll work on the bends. Also, hold the steering wheel really gently. The car does most of the work. The car drives in a straight line. You don't want to have your hands off the wheel like I did there, just to show you the car drives in a straight line, but you want to listen to the car. You want to listen to where it's going and guide it. Instead of holding it really tight, trying to control it for every exact movement you want. Nice loose steering, listen to where the car wants to go, and just small inputs to guide it and keep it in a good position. Now, although keeping your hands on the wheel works for bends, such as this bend here, I don't need to move my hands, it doesn't work so well for junctions, as I'm going to show you up here. I'm going to turn into this road on the right, and hopefully I can make it without taking my hands off the wheel. So let's turn right now. Let's see what happens. Can I make it? That is awkward. I weren't 100% sure there. I really had to cross my arms over. Barely made that turn. I was worried I might go into the grass. In fact, I was ready to start suddenly moving my hands if I couldn't make it. Didn't feel very nice though. I'm going to try it up here now. I'm going to try and go right at the end of this road whilst keeping my hands on the wheel. Wish me luck. I think I'm going to need it. Yeah. Is anyone coming? Quite hard to see here. Someone's going to edge out a little bit and improve my view. Someone's coming, so now I'll wait now as I'm not in the way yet. And right, there's the curb in front of me there. Let's try and go. Oh, that's not working at all. If I didn't move my hands around, I would be on the pavement. So there's the problem with keeping your hands on the wheel as you try to do junctions. You very quickly run out of steering travel, and that can be a little bit dangerous. So what's the way around that? Well, the recommended way is to feed the wheel, and there are benefits and advantages to feeding the wheel. So I do recommend you try it. What you basically do is both hands go up and down at the same time. So like that, both up and down at the same time, but one hand grips the wheel whilst the other hand gets ready to take over. Let me show you what I mean. So one hand is gripping and they both go down. They meet at the bottom. You switch your grip. So now I'm going to grip with the other hand and let go with the hand that was gripping. And then I'll go up and meet at the top. I'll switch grip again and they both go down again. And as you can see, you can continue steering without much of a pause. And as you get better, you will do it without pausing at all, as I am here. I can go backwards and forwards, or should I say towards the left and towards the right, without any pausing. A good way to practice that is with this. Let me show you. What I have here is a dinner plate. Dinner plate. A little bit of that spiral thing looking to my eyes, not around my eyes, but get your dinner plate and practice with a dinner plate. Practice with a frisbee if you have one, because if you drop a frisbee, you're not going to break a frisbee. But if you drop a dinner plate, don't tell anyone I told you to do this. I'm not taking responsibility for any broken dinner plates. But try to keep turning the dinner plate any way you can, ideally this way as I'm doing now, without it actually stopping, and try and reverse the direction as well. So go one way, then go the other, etc. And try not to get hypnotized by these black lines. There are two main aspects for good steering control. One is you need to be ready. So you have at least one hand on the wheel, two preferably. And if you hit a pothole, you can keep the car in a straight line. If you have just your finger resting on the wheel or just your thumb and you hit a pothole, what could happen is your steering could suddenly do that, and you're going to have to then pull the car back as it swerves one way or the other. Another important aspect is being able to steer consistently, continuously, so there's no pauses in your steering. That way you can go around a bend smoothly. For example, like this, you see the push-pull method where the wheel continuously turns without pausing. A lot of learners make the mistake to do this, turn with one hand, hold with the other, or if you do both hands, you have to pause and then readjust. You can continuously move it whilst crossing your arms like this, which is not such a problem, and it is actually accepted on the driving test, despite popular myth. But the problem with crossing your arms is at some point, your arm is going to be over that airbag, and that airbag comes out at some force. And if you've got a wristwatch on and that airbag goes off, that watch is going to hit you in the head at some force, enough force to kill you. I believe the force is similar to that of a pro player's golf ball after they've taken a drive. It can feel really weird changing your steering technique or even developing a steering technique. It can feel like you're not in control. So I recommend you drive slowly whilst you're changing your steering technique, and also practice when the car is stationary or with your dinner plate, plastic dinner plate, or a frisbee. It will feel odd But in the long term, if you develop a good steering technique, you will be a better driver. With regards to the UK driving test, you can use whatever steering technique you like as long as you have good control of the car. So crossing your arms is acceptable, although the problem with the airbag is something you want to consider. Driving like a gangster is also acceptable, but again, you've got that problem with the airbag, and have your hand here means that you can only do that, and you're not as ready to do that. If you're good at push-pull, you can really get it fully locked both ways very quickly. It's fully locked left, it's fully locked right. Couldn't say that quick enough. And I'll go back to straight. And then there's wax on, wax off, which isn't a problem if you're parking, because if you slip off the wheel when you're parking, doesn't matter, you're not going anywhere. But I don't recommend you do this as you're driving. And I say that from experience, because when I passed my driving test, not long after I passed my driving test, that was my preferred method of steering until I slipped off. And it took me a couple of occasions to learn, but I slipped off the wheel a couple of times and that was scary, so I stopped doing it. Not to mention that when you do wax on, wax off, you do have that same problem of your arm going over the airbag at some point. Another common problem with steering is putting your hand in the wheel to turn. I see people do this when they're turning, and that worries me, because not only is the airbag going to break your wrist if it goes off, you're not going to have much of a wrist left really. If someone hits the front of your car and your hand is in the steering wheel, your wheel is going to turn a couple of times very quickly if they hit the wheel. Let's say it's turned to the left right now and someone hits that wheel and your arm is in here. That wheel's going to go like that with your arm in it. I don't know what sort of damage that is going to cause, but I don't really want to find out. So keep your hands out of the steering wheel. When I drive, I keep my hands away from the airbag as much as possible, and I do keep my hands out of the steering wheel. I tend to drive my hands around about here. I like to rest my arms here as well, because it's quite comfortable. And I am guilty of putting my arm over the airbag as I steer when I'm parking, because your airbag isn't going to go off if you're parking, you're not going fast enough. Although there is a minor chance of it malfunctioning and going off, which is a bit of a worry. But I am yet to hear of that happening, although I'm sure it must have happened somewhere at some time. I recommend you straighten the wheel yourself after doing a turn. For example, here I'm going to go right, I'm going to add the steering, I'm going to take it off myself, like so. After that car, look where I'm going, I'm adding the steering, and now you can see I'm taking it off, accurately placing the car exactly where I want it to be. If I don't learn that skill and I don't do it myself, the car may straighten too quickly, which means I'll be going off towards the curb, or it might straighten too slowly, which will mean I'll be on the wrong side of the road. I'm going to give you an example now. I'm going to let the car straighten itself by letting go of the wheel. I'll turn right at the end of the road here. I'll steer to the right when it's safe to go, and I'll let go and see how it straightens, whether it's on time, too early, or too late. It could be either. Edge out to improve my view. Looks clear, so I'm going to add some steering and I'm going to take it off, and that's way too late. That's straightened way too slow, so I ended up completely on the wrong side of the road, which obviously isn't very safe. And I remember that very thing happening with my friend in 2008. And I know it's 2008 because he hadn't long passed his driving test, and he'd been driving around in his Peugeot 206, and his dad had just bought a brand new 2008 Audi A5, which somehow he was insured on and was able to drive. And we were leaving a golf club and he turned right out of the golf club, and he was used to his Peugeot 206 and how quickly it self-straightened. This Audi didn't straighten as quick. So he let go of the wheel far too late, and we ended up going towards oncoming cars. So you had to have a little bit of a panic to steer it back to avoid the oncoming cars. So that's an example of why it's better to self-straighten yourself, or straighten the wheel yourself, instead of relying on the car to do it. So you are in control and you're telling the car to go exactly where you want to all of the time. Particularly on roundabouts, and this is something a lot of learners do. As they're going round the roundabout and they go to take the exit, they let go of the wheel to take the exit, but it straightens far too quickly, because on a roundabout you're going a lot faster than you are on a normal T-junction, and they get used to letting go of the wheel. On the normal T-junction it straightens a lot more slowly, but now they're doing 20 miles an hour on a big roundabout. When you let go of the wheel, it's going to straighten really quickly, and that means they jar off to the left to leave the roundabout too quickly and have to grip the wheel again and bring it back, which is why it's such a problem, because not only does it straighten at different speeds in different cars, it all depends on the caster angle of the suspension, by the way, which is what determines how quickly it straightens, but it also straightens different speeds depending on how fast you're going. However, if you're good at straightening yourself, you can put the car exactly where you want to all the time. And now for a bit of bonus information. I mentioned caster angle earlier. So caster angle determines how quickly your wheels are going to self-straighten. Your car is designed to go in a straight line. It will keep you in a straight line. That's why you don't have to hold the wheel hard. The caster angle determines how quickly it's going to go in a straight line. But what is it? What is caster angle? A good way of seeing what caster angle is next time you go to a supermarket, look at the wheels on the bottom of a shopping trolley. As you push the shopping trolley forwards, all the wheels will go to the same position, and that's because the pivot point of the wheel, just looking for something circular right now, this will do, the pivot point of the wheel is at the front of the wheel. So even if the wheel's at an angle, when you move forwards, the wheel wants to go to straight, and that's what they do with the car's wheels, but it's tiny, it's very, very small. It's not like a shopping trolley where it's right at the front of the wheel. It's like a couple of degrees out. Otherwise your car would be very hard to turn. You'd be really, really heavy steering if you had that severe caster angle. Well, I hope this video helps you with your steering control. If you think it will, please give my video a thumbs up and check out Collingwood and Confused.com. Collingwood are great if you're looking to insure yourself on somebody else's car whilst you're learning, because you can do so without affecting their policy. There's long and short term policies available as well, and if you cancel a long term policy, you will get a pro rata refund for the term that you haven't used. Using the link in the description will give you up to 35% off and a £20 Amazon gift card. Also, using the link in the description does support this channel. However, don't just do that. I also recommend you check out Confused.com, because I always recommend comparing insurers to make sure you get the best deal. There's a link in the description to Confused.com. Again, using that link does support the channel, and Confused.com are often very competitive. If you want to get my future videos, please subscribe, and until the next one, cheerio.